Welcome viewer once again to this session on emotional intelligence and education leadership. So, in the last class we are discussing about the transformational leaders. Transformational leaders aims to bring changes not only in the individual staff, in the colleagues and the student and the stakeholders, but towards the overall holistic development of the institutions, like bringing changes, innovative changes in its functioning, in its systems, in its modus operandi, in achieving its targets, goals, achievements. That means total overall the overall all round development of the institutions. So, they focus on all round development of the educational institutions, including all the stakeholders, and for that matter different intelligent traits are required, and 4 such intelligent traits are very important for them. Like first is the idealized influence. As we have already discussed, leaders, they used to influence others by their articulatory skill, their influential skill, their motivational speeches, etc. So, first is the idealized influence. So, he must influence the stakeholders, he must influence all the staff and the colleagues, etc. in such a way that means he should make them familiar with the visions, missions and goals of the institution, of the organization from time to time, again and again, through all kinds of workshops, informal meetings, formal meetings, etc. In that process only he will motivate them, he will influence them, he will apprise them with the vision, missions and goals of the institution and how to achieve it. So, for that matter, what would be the action plans, how everybody should take up the responsibility, how we can implement it all the time, all nitty-gritties of the action plan and the implementation, etc. So, in that way, idealized influence, that means first he must play the role of a mentor, a role model, a great leader, and develop the influential skills to influence others, to persuade others, to motivate others towards achieving the institutional goals or the visions and missions. Second is inspirational motivations. Again, he has to inspire everybody, he has to inspire every staff, every colleague for for achieving the excellence, for achieving their potentials, their professional excellence, their academic excellence, maximizing their potential, being actively engaged in the process, being a party to all kinds of activities, to give their opinion, to take the ownership, you can say, take the ownership of every action, every activity they are engaged in, and being committed to. So, that kind of citizenship behavior he can bring among the staff and the employees, etc., through inspirational motivation. So, all the employees will feel that I am not only achieving or making effort for achieving the institutional goals, I am also making effort for achieving my own career goals as well. So, then again individualized consideration. However, the leader cannot take for granted that all the staff, all the colleagues, all the employees should perform at the equal level, or should that means deliver their maximum potentialities equally. So, he has to consider individual cases as well, taking into account their background, their experiences, their skills, their competencies, their abilities, even their personal background also. So, individualized consideration has to be there depending on the individual abilities, individual needs, individual variations among the staff. And another is intellectual stimulation. All the time, constantly, it is not just motivating them to deliver their effort in terms of energy, in terms of time, in terms of their capabilities, but also to stimulate their thinking process, to encourage them, to motivate them for being more innovative, for being more creative, to think in a different way, think out of the box. So, that kind of constant intellectual stimulation is also required, and that can be provided by the transformational leader as a mentor. Now, the next is that emotional labor and emotional regulation. Now, we have already discussed about emotional awareness, emotional management, then emotional in social context it is emotional social awareness and relationship management. So, in that context what are the other two competencies are like emotional labor and emotional regulation. We have to not only monitor our monitor and control our own emotion, but we have to regulate our emotions. When we can regulate our own emotion, then we can perfectly blend it with our thinking process. So, it can enhance our analytical skill, it can enhance our brain power also in giving the logical reasoning, justification, and formulating the future hypothesis, future perspectives, scope, etc. So, here two two another important components are like emotional labor. So, you can say emotional labor is also a component part of the emotional regulation. How do we regulate emotion? And emotional labor is an, you can say, as an outcome of that. So, what is this emotional labor? Emotional labor is the public face of emotion in leadership. So, when the leader motivates others, gives a motivational speech, appraise the staff and the colleagues with the vision and missions and goals of the organization of the institution. So, talk to them, have a dialogue with them, discuss the issues, engage all the members with a constructive conversation, etc. So, in that process itself, he is also supposed to, he is also expected to emote, express his experiences, emote, that means express his emotions, like how he can bring the positive emotions among the staff by motivating others. He himself has to exhibit it, he himself has to demonstrate it, demonstrate these positive emotions by the motivational speech, by the continuous dialogue, etc. So, here it comes the emotional labor. Emotional labor is the public face of emotions in leadership. When a leader expresses his emotions, expresses his positive emotions or negative emotions publicly in the open platform, narrating it, explaining it, justifying it, acting upon it, responding to it. So, it becomes an emotional labor. That means, he is making effort consciously for expressing his emotions in a public platform and justifying this, rationalizing this and motivating others. So, emotional labor is the public face of emotions in the context of leadership. So, EI again influences the levels and the types of emotional labor strategies leaders employ. So, very often the leader conducts meetings, formal meetings, informal meetings, then they often they confront with some conflict situation also, they try to resolve it. Often they motivate the employees and the staffs with the next set of strategy and the targets and the action plans, or the kind of any kind of current issues or emerging issues they are facing right now. Maybe the student admission being the agitation, student agitation being the student unrest, being the political interference, or being the community people's revolt against some of the issues. So, whenever they are facing they are having the group meetings, etc. So, the leader can demonstrate this emotional labor in different level. It can be positive, it can be negative, it can be having the different intensity with different strategies. So, very often the leaders they flexibly use this emotional labor in a very strategic way, varying in terms of types, in terms of intensity, in terms of degrees according to the requirement of the situation, context. Then comes regulation of emotion is a significant part of education leaders' work. So, leaders is there how to motivate others, how to regulate others' emotion, how to motivate the leaders to be committed to achieve the professional excellence, how to stimulate their intellectual ability. So, all these things, for all these activities, the individual, the leader has to be very active, very emotive, very he has to demonstrate, he has to exhibit, he has to perform. That means, he himself has to be live role model. That means, who emotes, who enjoys the happiness, who shows of his anger. That means, who is having opinions, who is having different kinds of expectations, and he clearly explicitly mentioned that these are my expectations. Then he gets upset. Whenever he gets upset, he has to exhibit it. So, the leader is the living role model to whom the colleagues and the employees they look up to understand, because here they need to understand the leader also. So, and hence the leaders must be very transparent in their, not only in their thought, but in their behavior, in their maneuver, in their activity, so that everybody can accurately predict, accurately acknowledge, accurately understand what exactly the leader is, what he thinks, what he plans for the future, what he believes, what are his opinions, and what he expects from us, or what he expects us to do. So, for that matter, he has to understand the emotional expression of the leader, and for that the leader has to make effort to express his emotion, that is called the emotional labor, and every leader strategically use this. So, two types of emotional regulations are there as according to Husserl. So, emotional labor, you can say it is an outcome of emotional regulation. Now, there are different types of emotional regulation. So, one is called antecedent, another is called response. What is antecedent? That is the focused regulation. So, in this process, modifying the initial feelings by changing the situation, cognition of the situation. So, here the leader has to have some prior information about the situation, about the context, about the situation, feelings of the members involved in that situation. So, the cognition of the situation beforehand, and accordingly modifying, regulating his own emotions and feelings to exhibit it, to make the emotional labor, to exhibit it. It is more a kind of empathy, because he has before actually emoting, because making the emotional labor, he has well understood the whole situation, the causes, the factors, the antecedents, and now his focus is on how to mitigate it, how to resolve it, or how to strengthen it, etc. So, he has to be very empathetic. So, that is called the antecedent focused regulation. Another is the response focused regulation, that is modifying the behavior once the emotions are experienced. So, the moment he himself has experienced, the leader has experienced the instant emotion, then and thereafter he modifies his emotions by suppressing, either by suppressing or by amplifying, sometimes intensifying sometimes, or maybe sometimes by showing some fake or artificial kind of emotions. So, it is a kind of sympathy. So, here comes a sympathy, difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is it is a more kind of superficial. Like for example, when we are going to attend some kind of funeral or some death or some kind of condolence meeting, some kind of unfortunate event, etc., etc. There we are supposed to behave and act like an ideal, that means ideal citizen, in the sense that means we are as if we are also very in the grief condition as the people who are there. So, we have to emote in that way, and often we do it genuinely, and sometimes we also do it artificially, that is called the sympathy. That means, you are showing off the emotional expressions, labor, but these are actually not your true feelings right now, but you are somehow managing, you are making effort, that is these are the emotional labor. You are showing off to others as per the requirement of the situation, that is the response focused regulation. Whereas, in the empathy, in case of the empathy, you have well understood the situation, you are completely experiencing that situation, and you are feeling as if you are also a part of that situation. Hence, your emotions, or whatever emotional labor, emotional expression you are showing off right now, it is quite genuine, like it is quite real, and you are really feeling bad about this situation, and you are expressing the same thing. That means, you are also genuinely experiencing the whole situation as the others are also experiencing then and there. Similarly, emotional regulation is achieved in two ways. So, this kind of emotional labor regulation, it can be achieved in two ways, either in surface acting or in deep acting. Just now we have discussed about either in being sympathetic to others, like by artificially creating, amplifying your emotion and showing off before others, or by actually feeling and experiencing the genuine feelings and showing it off. So, surface acting is that when the people change their outward emotional expressions, so without feeling the actual emotions they display. For example, take the example of an actors. Actors, that means actors, they can emote, they can act, they can make the instant expression of different kinds of emotion, because they are very apt, very efficient in demonstrating these kind of emotions. Here we can say it surface acting, they can instantly act upon. So, but in deep acting what happens, when they actually feel the emotions, they display. So, when suppose when we witness some kind of accident or any kind of unrest or any kind of mishap or unfortunate incident, when we see it, when we face it, we witness it, we really become very emotionally disturbed, or we become emotionally emotionally charged you can say. So, in that context, in that situation, whatever our experiences, the feelings are coming up, these are actually our genuine feelings. We really feel like that in that particular situation. So, emotional labor, we can say, for example, the air hostess, their job requires that they have to be very friendly, they have to be very they have to be very good hostess, they have to appeal others, they have to impress others, because that their primary responsibility is hospitality, and how can they make their customers very happy. Similarly, so they make effort, special effort, or you can say voluntary effort, we can say voluntary effort they are making. So, that is called the emotional labor, that is emotional labor for discharging their duties and responsibilities, in case of the air hostess, in case of the receptionist. So, they are making special effort to to discharge their duties, to please their customers, to satisfy the customers in terms of service, in terms of communication, in terms of their queries, answering their queries, etc. So, here surface acting, when the people change the outward emotional experience instantly, then and there, without feeling actually the same emotion inside them. And deep acting is that when actually they feel the emotions, they display. Emotional intelligence and emotional and educational leadership, again how it helps us. Now, EI may inform the leader as to when and what type of emotional strategy, lever strategy is required depending on the context. So, again all these kinds of human behavior are very much contextual. What is required, like there are different kinds of situation in the educational institution, in the campus. It may be students unrest with regard to admission, it may be it may be a student strike for delaying the exam schedule, it may be a strike between the staff and the administrators, it may be it may be the among parents and teachers disagreement, it may be community people, they are not happy with the kind of schools kind of school services they are getting, etc. So, what is the actual situation, what is the context? He has to you go into the depth of the real situation, the context, the causal factors, the parties, who are the members, who are the parties engaged in that situation. By understanding all these things, then he has to develop certain strategies to develop different flexible strategies, and the type of emotional labor he has to adopt. He has to adopt for resolving the situation, for resolving the conflict, or resolving the problem, etc. So, this kind of, if the leader is emotionally intelligent, it can give him the some intuition, some intuitive thoughts, some some cues, some strategic thinking, like now in this context, in order to resolve this in that way. So, now I have to adopt this kind of skills and strategies to resolve this. So, how skillfully he can resolve it, how skillfully he can manage the whole situation, solve the problem. So, it depends on the emotional intelligence of the educational leader. The leaders high on empathy will prefer to use the general emotional expressions and deep acting instead of surface acting. If the leader is an authentic leader, if the leader is a genuine leader, if the leader is a transformational leader, if the leader is the coach and the mentor of that institution, so definitely he is not going to fake his emotions, not going to show off a artificial kind of emotional labor, but rather he should be he should be genuinely involved in that particular situation, genuinely so the deep aspect, deep deep acting, deep emotions, deep that means innate responses, deep emotional feelings and emotions to the stakeholders, to the people, to the staff and the colleagues, because he wants to bring the real change, actual transformation, because he is genuinely interested in everybody's improvement, in the individual development, in the institutional development as well. So, leaders who perform emotional labor will be more likely to be perceived as transformational leaders. So, leaders who are engaged in active, deep emotional level and deep emotional level, and they take into consideration the antecedents, the situation, the context. So, who perform emotional level will be more likely to be perceived as a transformation leader, and deep acting will be more effective than the surface acting at the increasing perception of the information leaders, transformation leaders. So, that is that leader, as you know, the moment a person becomes the leader, the transformational leader or the democratic leader or authentic leader, etc., he is being observed, he is being identified, he is being monitored, he is being identified, he is being identified by each and every mentee, each and every follower, each and every colleague, each and every protease. So, every now and then the followers, the colleagues, the staff, they try to imitate, try to identify, imitate, observe the leader. Hence, every moment it's consciously or unconsciously they also evaluate the leader's emotions, his behaviors, his sayings, his thoughts, his actions, whatever he has said in which meeting, and now what he is doing. So, they constantly evaluate, critically evaluate the leader, his authenticity, his genuineness, his honesty, his integrity. Hence, if the transformation leader is genuinely engaged, involved in deep acting of the emotions, emotional labor, that means he is being judged, he is being speculated, analyzed by the followers, by the colleague and the staff as the genuine person, as an authentic leader, actually a well integrated person who wants our well-being, who wants the organization's well-being, who wants that all these visions and missions and our goals should be achieved, and we can take up our institution to the height by working together. So, the transformation leader is willing to work collaboratively, cooperatively, and he is being constantly supervised, observed by the fellows. Hence, usually they do deep acting, they make effort, conscious effort to be empathetic towards others, and they are genuinely being accepted by also followers. So, in emotionally charged context of education, the leaders must weave together. Hence, in emotionally charged situation, like depending on the situation, depending on the crisis, depending on the conflicts the members are engaged in, depending on the issues and how emerging, what is the emergency and urgency of that issue, and how critical that issue is. So, depending on these kind of the criticality of this situation, so that is emotionally charged context of education, the leaders must weave together. They have to skillfully, efficiently, strategically weave together, blend together their EI competencies, their emotional intelligence competencies, their understanding of the whole context, the causal factors, the attributing factors, and whatever the networks, the goodwills, the relationship they have built up, and their willingness to perform the emotional labor. They are willing to dedicate their time, they are willing to offer their time, resources, effort, everything to resolve the issue, to resolve the conflict, to resolve the issue, to solve the problem, etc. So, hence here there is no issue of there is no issue of ego, there is no issue of the ego clash. So, an emotional intelligent leader does not have any problem with ego, that means false ego, rather they are having high self-esteem. High self-esteem is that they are very confident. Why they are confident? As because they are optimist, they are positive, as because their self-esteem is very high, because they are confident and they think that, and they genuinely want to resolve the issue, resolve the problem. Again, they are highly innovative and creative because they can perfectly blend the whole cues from the situation with the context and the causal factors. So, they can strategically think, flexibly use the strategy. They have the patience, they have the compassion, they have the empathy. So, they can individually understand and listen to everybody's problem. So, they take their time, they take the initiative, they have the capacity, they have the patience, they have the listening skill, they are empathetic, they are considerate, they are compassionate, they have the patience. So, they skillfully they have blended their intelligence and the social cues, the contextual cues, the emotional cues, they have perfectly blended it with their analytical thinking, intelligence, and they have now they are determined to resolve the issue. So, in that context, so the transformational leaders, the educational leaders, the highly emotionally intelligent leaders, they are having the high self-esteem. So, high self-esteem is what do they feel about themselves? They feel about themselves as very confident, very competent, very happy, very healthy. They are very confident about their relationship, they are very passionate about their work, they are very dedicated, they have a high high respect for others, they do trust their followers and employees, as well as they also incur the respect of others, they also get the respect of others, etc. So, in that way this highly self-esteemed educational leaders are usually having high emotional intelligence, and it also shows their high level of self-efficacy, high level of commitment, high level of flexibility, high level of intellectual caliber, in the sense that they can flexibly and instantly and very strategically blend their intelligence, analytical thinking with the emotional intelligence, and can deal with any kind of situational crisis or the contextual crisis problem, etc. And their whatever emotional labor they they make in the particular situation, dealing with the particular situation, are very quite genuine, authentic, and through which they display their integrity and honesty. Now, the next question is whether the leaders are born or made. So, up to now, till now we have discussed there are different kinds of leaders, charismatic leaders are also there, some leaders are born leaders, some leaders are democratic leaders, some leaders are hard task masters, but they have been very successful in achieving their targets. So, there are different types of leaders and leadership styles, but yes, we can draw one conclusion is that leadership styles may vary, but again leadership is also very contextual, So, we can say that this leadership style is successful, is fruitful, or it has brought success to the institution, or it is authentic, it is genuine, etc. depending on the so many co-factors, depending on the situational factors, co-factors like who are the followers, who are the employees, who are the staff, who are the students, who are the stakeholders, what was the situation consisting of different kinds of resources, and whether the followers and the group members or the team members, they were willing to accept the leaders leaders commands or the instructions, or his callings or his sayings, etc. So, it is very much inbuilt in the situation, it is very much contextual, it is very much situational, and in the we cannot generalize that transformational leaders are always very good, or the democratic leaders are always the best, etc. But again, transformational leaders, definitely its scope and its opportunities, its philosophy is very broad. So, from that perspective it is an idealistic, but again transformational leaders are also flexible enough to adapt themselves to the new situation, and by flexibly using their EI and the intelligence, and by blending their competencies along with the situational cues and context, they can very well capable of dealing with any kind of situation. Hence, the transformational leadership style is very popular, very famous, because its scope and opportunities are also very wide. We have not restricted the transformational leadership into few guidelines or principles, but it is open, it is a kind of open situation. In transformational leadership case, any leader can adopt any kind of flexible strategy and approach depending on the whole situation, context, the followers, and how much willing the team members are, what are the resources available, and blending all his the cognitive and effective leadership strategic approach, emotional labor. Okay. So, now we will continue the same thing in the next session, like whether the leaders are born or made. We will discuss about this, and we will also discuss about some of the issues related to educational scenario. Thank you.